You're on a GLP-1, but now you're wondering, how do I manage my side effects? What do I eat to stay strong? Because reaching your weight loss goals can take more than meds. That's where Weight Watchers Med Plus comes in. Get access to trusted experts, food plans that work with your body, and habit coaching to keep you on track. Plus access to GLP-1 medication. Get started at WeightWatchers.com. All medical services are provided through our affiliated medical group, Weight Watchers Clinic. Medications require eligibility and prescription. Individual results may vary. See site for more details.
All right, here we go. Oh, it's raining out. All right, welcome back to the Daily Drive. It's raining out. You know, got to deal with the weather because I'm driving. I don't know if you can hear the rain or the other sounds, but here we are. And I'm doing an episode for the Fallout Lorecast because, you know, I'd been thinking about Fallout London and the success of the launch of Fallout London and the response of the community. And people have been discussing, what does this actually mean? What does this mean for Bethesda? What does this mean for us as the fans and the people who enjoy these games? And then also, what does it mean for the modding community and just the state of games in general, including Bethesda's games? They've clearly focused on the modding community and want that community to thrive. And they see that the modding community is part of why their games do so well and maintain a fan base, and people keep coming back to them. I know I've spent more time modding Fallout and Skyrim than I did when I initially played through them, adding other mods, doing other playthroughs, all that kind of stuff. But with Fallout London, we have the first time an instance of a game that, well, a mod that's basically the equivalent of almost a full release, at least you could say a very major DLC. This isn't just, you know, a cosmetic mod that's going to update the graphics or give you another hour of quest line to do. This is a pretty much an entire game based off of the engine of Fallout 4. And according to Bethesda, that's fine. Like, they're in support of people doing this. They're in support of supporting the mods, the modding teams, and the community's enjoyment of those things. They're very supportive of content creators in general in this podcast and things like that. But I don't think when they started down this path of making their games easily moddable that they really thought people were going to actually fulfill this idea of creating such extravagant games and releases. I mean, this is almost effectively like making a game on the Unreal Engine and then selling that as a new game. And yes, they're giving it away for free, but at the same time, the Fallout London people are running a Patreon and they're asking for support. And as well they should. I ask for support for my podcasts and the content creation that I do. And I give it away for free. You can listen to these shows for free and you get ads and stuff, but you can also pay to support and make sure that the podcast keeps going. So it makes sense to me that that would be a viable path to mod making. Now, I don't know how much they actually make. I don't know how much of what they make goes into specific people on the team, how they divvy up any of those resources, or if they just reinvest it in other ways into creating the mods that they need and the tools for making those mods and those kinds of things. I don't know how they manage that money at all. But I don't think that matters so much in the perspective of what this means to Bethesda and us as the community and the rest of the modding community out there as well. It shows that it's something that's viable, but it does kind of raise the question, what is the boundary between a team that works together and creates game-sized mod packs and another team that builds something on the Unreal Engine, releases it on Steam, and puts it out there for people to purchase, the line gets a little fuzzy, right? It's kind of somewhere in the middle. Now, there are some things that I think, let's do it this way. Let's look at it from the perspective of Bethesda. Let's look at it from the perspective of we as the gaming community. And then let's look at it from the perspective of the modding community and modders. What does this actually mean? Well, for Bethesda, I think it means that the stakes have been raised. In supporting these kinds of mods, they are getting direct feedback about what the community expects in future games. And they're going to be comparing the next Fallout game to Fallout London. It creates kind of a high bar, right? And I discussed something very similar in the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. There's a daily drive I did just yesterday that's going to go up on that feed about how these gigantic mod packs, these like Wabbajack mod packs that I've been trying out and streaming live as often as I can, they've really made Skyrim feel like a full release, like a brand new full release with these mods. Makes them feel like like a modern game. The game doesn't look 10 years old anymore. The graphics and the combat and the leveling up systems, all that stuff is improved due to these mod packs with thousands and thousands of mods. So that raises the bar. And if you want to hear more about that, go listen on the Elder Scrolls Lorecast feed. But the same thing can be said for Fallout London. It is the equivalent of a mod pack, but more coordinated. And it is the equivalent of having thousands of mods, everything that updates and creates new items, to new locations, to new quests, to voiced NPCs, all of that stuff. So it really raises the bar on Bethesda. And so I guarantee that they are playing this mod, that they are aware of it, that they are watching the community discuss this on social media, on Reddit, on Steam posts, wherever, and they're seeing the feedback from the community. Now, part of that feedback you have to take with a grain of salt, because part of it is the fan base going, holy crap, I can't believe they actually did this. And for something that was basically a passion project by a bunch of modders, this is phenomenal. And so you have to deal with the expectations, right? People are always going to have lower expectations for a mod team than they will for the official product from Bethesda, worked on by official designers with years of experience and all of that. But there are things that the mod team can benefit from that the team at Bethesda can't. One of those things is an infinite timeline. And it's not actually infinite, but the idea would be that let's say Bethesda moves on from working on Elder Scrolls 6. Let's say they finish Elder Scrolls 6, they launch it, and now they're full on working on the next Fallout game. Let's say Fallout 5. They absolutely have a timeline that they are shooting for to get that launched. Because if they don't launch it, they don't make money, and the community doesn't get the next game, and everybody's disappointed, and the stakes just keep raising and raising. So I guarantee that there is a timeline that a goal that they are setting that they really don't want to push past. And like they have in the past, they may push back that date until it's ready and they feel like it's ready for release, which is usually the right decision to make. But let's say that's 4 or 5 years from the beginning to the end of that project. That's a hard timeline. Somebody who's working on a massive mod project doesn't have to release something by a specific date unless they just arbitrarily are picking that date because they want to get it out by that date. Look at the Skyblivion project, turning Elder Scrolls Oblivion into a fundamentally brand new game that runs on the Skyrim engine. And they've been working on that for a decade. And they don't have to release it. They're planning to release it in 2025, but they don't have to release it then. They could push it back again. People are working on this in their spare time. So they could take as much time as they really want. The community is still going to be there. And on top of that, when it comes out, it's going to be free. So there's no impetus to have to make money off of it by launching it on a certain date. So what I'm getting at is, in that scenario, you end up with a game that can take as long as it wants and it doesn't have those same pressures. But when you're working for a studio, you very much have pressures. You have only a certain amount of hours that every designer, every game dev can commit every week to work. And then you have to get it out there. So I'm sure they're looking at Fallout London and going, okay, well, we at least have to make something that matches the quality of something like this. So that's where I think the pressure comes from for them. But I think that there's the other side of this too, that shows that when people mod things like this into games and we get the feedback from the community, then we, you and I, and also the game devs, better understand the things that the community wants, what we value, things that we appreciate. I think, I mean, heck, go back, it was a few dozen episodes at this point, where I talk about the things that will always be in mainline Fallout games. And one of those things I mentioned was that they will always be set in the United States, because that's just been the theme. That's part of the core of that world. And the fact that the people who are surviving in the wasteland in the United States have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world. We really don't know. And that mystery is kind of fun, that it doesn't actually get solved. It allows us to just keep wondering what's going on and how will that play out. Well, something like Fallout London shows us that you can take the Fallout formula and put it in another place, and it absolutely works. And I don't think that's a huge surprise to anybody who's listened to any of our patron chats where we talk about other locations that Fallout could work in. I think it could work in almost any location, really. So what that does is it tells the developers, hey, you don't have to constrain yourself with the setting. You could pick anything, and it could work. And the community would be okay with that. People aren't going to be upset if the next Fallout game takes place in China. In fact, that would be kind of exciting, especially if you do a really good job of it. And it would open up the design team to do more with the IP. Now, is that going to happen? Maybe not for a long time, but it at least gives them some feedback. And I think you can use that logic for getting feedback about the location to other aspects as well. Man, it is raining so hard right now while I drive. I hope this audio comes out okay. All right, now it's calming down a little bit. It's a little less rainy. So my point in that example is that the mod projects like this and other mods in general can be a way for them to test things out without actually having to test things out on their own. They can get the feedback from the community about the things in that mod pack, the things they liked, the things they didn't like. And that can help inform future decisions for future games, which theoretically should make for better games. Now let's talk about from the perspective of the community. As somebody who enjoys playing mods and is very much in support of people expressing themselves and coming up with really cool things to put in mod games, of ways of improving the games. There's definitely some mod packs for the games that I've played that I feel like should have been part of the original game. People joke about the modders fixing the games for Bethesda over the years, and there's some truth to that, sure. But finally getting a finished project with the scope, well, mostly finished project with the scope of Fallout London, and by mostly finished, I mean launched, but they're still patching it. It shows that other projects could potentially actually come out. And that's kind of been a big joke in the modding community for the last decade plus, is that so many times you see a big project start and then never quite make it, never get released. But this is one that did. So it shows that it's possible, which I think will enable other mod teams to go through and finish their projects and to use this as an example of how to make that work. So that's exciting as a gamer to be able to say, oh, well, some of this stuff's actually gonna be out there and is gonna, be available for us to enjoy. So that's great. So my concern with Fallout London and other mod packs that would do this kind of thing has to do with, and you've probably listened to the previous episode where I talked about canonicity, what actually canon means. And I'm sure some of you can foresee where this is going. If you define canon as being, well, the actual definition, something that an authority defines as being, oh, are you backing up? Hold on. Drivers. So if you define canon as being requiring an authority to define and that authority is the IP holder, which is my perspective on it, then Fallout London, unless it gets the approval from Bethesda, unless it gets the blessing of the Almighty, Todd, will not and cannot be canon. It can be a fun side story. It can be like fan fiction. In fact, you could even carry it around as your own headcanon if you want to define it for yourself as being accurate enough to fit into your view of the world. But unless Bethesda reaches down and says, you know what, you did a good job. We're going to define this as canon, and we will use this information moving forward when designing any future Fallout games or shows or anything like that. This is actually what happened in London, in the UK, and it's now stamped as official, and we're going to use this as official. Unless that happens, then that's not canon. And I don't mind from a personal perspective. I like to play other people's mods, and sometimes those mods break the world in very weird ways. And I think that's totally fine. But it feels a little different when it's like, oh, I just added in that one goofy character with a goofy character mod, and it broke the canon of the game. When you compare that to an entire story based on a new location with a whole bunch of characters and groups and its own history, the scope is very different. And I have to wonder how many people will have played Fallout London, and then years from now, when we get the next Fallout game, pieces of it kind of sit in their minds as being their own headcanon and accurate. And then we get a future Bethesda game, and something conflicts with some information from Fallout London, and then people get all upset on the internet about, well, they clearly didn't play Fallout London or respect all that work because they're doing their own lore and it breaks it. It also kind of puts Bethesda in that position where, I mean, they could do that if they want. Do they just avoid any topics that Fallout London happened to cover because they just don't want to deal with that? Or do they, let's say they want to go do something in Europe and get more information, and maybe let's say they even wanted to do their own Fallout London, does that now make it less likely to happen? Because, well, it kind of already exists. There's complexity there, right? Like, what is the right way to handle that? And I don't know. It's not like we've been here before, right? My guess is that they will continue to focus on other stuff, and they will avoid talking about, Europe and London and, the UK and any of the areas that this kind of hits into in more specific detail. Let's say they set the next Fallout game in Seattle. I'm just picking a place, right? They don't have to put in characters or little snippets of historical documentation that point at anything else going on in other places in the world unless they really want to and it plays into that story. That's typically what they do, right? Like, the reason why we know anything about China is because they decide to add characters or locations or DLC that have something to do with the Chinese part of the war, and it fills out our details for us. So I don't know that it's a huge problem. It just kind of adds some complication. And that's the way I'd phrase that. It's time for that spring reset. I'm taking a look at everything in my closet and figuring out that, oh no, this absolutely needs to go. And it's about time I replace things so that my clothes aren't older than my 15-year-old. Now you might think that they lasted that long because they were well made, but no, they're in terrible condition. Unlike the new jeans I just got from Quince. Jeans have always been my personal go-to because you can kind of wear them for lots of different things, but maybe they're not your thing. Maybe you're looking for, 100% European linen with insanely soft flow knit activewear fabric. It's definitely getting warmer, and their flow knit activewear is moisture wicking, anti-odor, and soft enough that you'll actually want to wear it every day. So pick out what you want. You can't go wrong because they have prices 50 to 60% less than similar brands. And like I said before, they are high quality. I continue to wear their clothes all the time, and I know that these new jeans are going to last me a lot better than the other things in my wardrobe. And on top of it, they look great. They're so comfortable, and I spent just as much on the jeans that I am now cleaning out of my wardrobe. So if you're looking for something better, just all around better, go check out Quince. So go do it right now. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com
quince.com/falloutlore for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/falloutlore for free shipping and 365-day returns. quince.com/falloutlore.
The new Wegovy pill is now available through Weight Watchers. Powerful GLP-1 results in a simple pill at the lowest price available. And with Weight Watchers, you can get doctor support and personalized nutrition programs. See if you qualify at WeightWatchers.com. Ad not reviewed or approved by Novo Nordisk.
So what does that mean moving forward, though? Like, how does this affect the modding community and the future of what we see as, I don't know, content? I think it makes things a little bit more complex. I think it inspires the modding community. I would be remiss to think that that's not going to be the case. But I also have to wonder about the longevity of mods like this. It's one thing to keep going back to Fallout New Vegas, a decade plus later, and re-experiencing that DLC because the stories are so intricately woven together. There's a lot of stuff that you can experience and ways that you can experience things and play things out in very different ways. And it's canon. It's part of the core lore. So you feel like by going back and re-experiencing that, you're adding to your knowledge. You're adding to your understanding of this world. Does Fallout London work the same way? When deep down we know that it's not actually canon? And does that get confusing? Like I mentioned earlier, like 10 years from now, are those of us who play Fallout London going to be wondering why they didn't even include any of that stuff in later Fallout games? And not even on purpose, like just on accident. Like, how memories kind of get blended all together. Like, oh yeah, these are the guns that were in previous Fallout games. Why isn't that gun in the game anymore? And it's like, oh wait, that was a Fallout London gun. That wasn't something from one of the official games. Like it adds complexity there, right? That's a little bit weird. Now, are any of these things deal breakers? No. Are any of these complexities, and I'm not going to call them problems, I think they're just complexities. Do any of those things mean that we shouldn't be playing these kinds of mods or hoping for them or supporting teams that are working on them? No, I don't think that's the case either. I think that would be taking it too far. I think generally speaking, the truth and reality tends to be somewhere in the middle of most things that we deal with. It's not on the extremes. So will we get other full-fledged mods that come to completion that work like this? Absolutely. Will that be good for the community? I think so. Will that make things a little trickier for Bethesda? Possibly. And I think that's where we're at. Now, I think there is possibility that a mod team with the right people and the right scope and the right amount of time could outperform Bethesda. That is possible. It's not probable, but it is possible. And if that were to happen, that could be very detrimental to the community, to their ability to make new games, any of that stuff. And it doesn't have to happen in a way that is completely objective. It's a subjective experience is what really matters there. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you were to open up Fallout London and then you were to open up Fallout 5, right, and compare them. I'm just using Fallout London because it's the only one out there right now that's like this. And you went, okay, let's look at the textures. A, B, cool. Let's look at the character designs. A, B, cool. Let's look at the story beats. A, B, cool. There's only so much that you can do to objectively compare the two. Now, chances are that the official game is going to have, for example, better textures or a little bit more thought put into the scope of the game and the details. But that's not necessarily the case. It may not actually stack up. And the real complexity here comes in the subjective experience of those things. It's one thing to say this texture is higher detail than this other texture because texture A is a 4K texture and texture B is a 1080p texture. You can count the pixels. You can tell which one has more pixels. But the subjective experience of those textures is really what matters. And when that comes into play, then even if the modded game doesn't objectively match up on every single metric, if the community likes it better, if people have a better subjective experience with it, and value the things that they put their time into more than the just the average across the board, then that means that things are very difficult for Bethesda. That means that they have to compete with kind of this amorphous target. How do you hit subjective enjoyment? And that goes back to the whole thing about paying attention to the community's response and how they, what things they like and what things they don't like and all of that. But ultimately, that's a really hard thing to do. It's one thing when you're a studio and you're competing with your previous titles. It's one thing to go, okay, well, what did we do in Fallout 3? Now we're making Fallout 4. How do we make it bigger and better and more interesting and more detailed and technologically more advanced and all of the things that we would want to increase in order to make it a better game, something that people will enjoy more, something that they will buy more. And some people will argue that they absolutely did that with Fallout 4 over Fallout 3. Some people will argue that Fallout 4 is better than Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Not just on a technological standpoint, because clearly it has higher res textures and things like that. But some people did enjoy the characters and the story better than those other games. But a lot of people didn't. And that's hard, right? That's hard to manage. Now, you're also competing with other RPGs that are out there in the world. And that's another thing, right? You got to compete with actual studios doing other RPGs. Like Fallout 5 is going to be compared to Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever the next Witcher game is. Any of that stuff. It's all going to be compared. But that feels like a target you can kind of predict, right? Like that feels like, okay, we understand who these studios are, how they make games, what they make games about, what those communities like about those games, because they've already existed in the world. When it comes to a modding team, it's kind of a wild card. You don't know what they're capable of until they release something. And if they release something too good, maybe that's a problem. So how do you plan for that? And my gut says that other than just doing the best you possibly can in order to keep a finger on the pulse of the community and to look at your previous things that you've made and look at what people really do value about Fallout and the community and how they've responded to things like the TV show. You do the best you can, but I don't know. How would you feel if another project came out before Fallout 5 or at the same time as Fallout 5 and it was, in your eyes, better? Would that make you feel bad? Would that make you kind of, less of a fan of Bethesda games in general? Would that break your confidence in the studio to be able to put out something that you will enjoy? I think games like Fallout 76, with its rough launch, probably did that for a lot of people. I don't know, though. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, as usual, and I hope the audio was okay. It was very, very rainy when I left the house. It is only kind of drizzling now. And thank you for tuning into my daily drive. And let me know your thoughts. Chime in on the Discord or on the Patreon if you're listening to the Patreon version of this. And if you have any other topics you would like me to cover, whether they be these kinds of like brainstorm topics or what if topics, I've got some of those popping up on the Discord about like, what if everybody was a synth? Or, what if House actually got the platinum chip? Things like that. So throw out some ideas and I'll tackle the ones that I feel I have something to say about. And thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy this episode and I'll see you next time.